first, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Andy Rallis. I'm the current president of the SOA, and I've been the president for maybe 3 months. One of the things about the SOA is we change presidents once a year, so it's a very short time to be president, but it can be very impactful, and that's what I'm hoping here. I'm very humble and honored to be invited to speak here today with you. This is, I think, one of the things that I have a passion for is bringing international work around the globe. And I am, as Ahmad said, I'm the chief actuary for MetLife, global chief actuary. I have maybe over 1,200 actuaries working for me in more than 46 countries. So it's, I can't visit every country every year, but I've visited many countries, and I'm very proud to see the profession growing. It's growing really around the world. So, and a little bit about me, I've been with MetLife, it's not a short time. I hit my 35th anniversary just a few months ago. So I've been with MetLife for 35 years. So it's been pretty much my whole career. And I started in university. I went to MIT in the US, and I studied science there, physics. But when I graduated, I decided I really wanted to do something more practical that would touch the lives of people in a more real way. And that's what I think as actuaries we can bring. We bring that to the whole society, because the kinds of things that insurance brings to the world allow businesses to develop, families to thrive, and that's really, in my opinion, is only possible with the work of the actuaries. And it could be on behalf of the government, it could be on behalf of private industry, but the promises that a government or a company makes allow people to take on things in life that there would have been much more uncertainty without insurance. And you really can't have insurance without actuaries. So for me, this is very important. Now, the topic I'm talking about today is really at the leading edge of what we're talking about within the Society of Actuaries. The role that AI and new technologies are bringing to what's happening today. So, let's see. Okay, so today we're going to talk about data science. We're going to talk about AI and machine learning. You may have heard these terms. I'm going to describe them a little bit more fully. We're going to talk about what that means for how the actuaries are doing their work, what we can innovate in, what challenges it brings to us as professionals. Okay. Well, let's see. So let me just stay on this slide for just a moment, because many of the actuaries, and especially ones like myself who were trained many years ago, were trained in traditional statistics techniques. And one of the things that's different about the world then and the world today, when we were looking back then, statistics was really about taking a small data set and making an extrapolation. How many observations do you need? How big does N have to be before your data is credible? And this was typical because it was very hard to get data, and so extrapolating was very important. But today the problem has shifted. Now today we have much more data than we can use. It's almost taking big data, the term big data, and figuring out how to extract information from big data by throwing data away and finding the patterns within the big data. So, and that's true in any field. You can think of medical diagnoses. You can think of how much maybe having genetic information about somebody has and predictive disease, or telematics with the cars and having data about your driving patterns. So now there's so much data, it really requires different techniques. So, and in our world, we need to really kind of understand both techniques, the world of the actuary. So AI, I believe, is transforming professional work. This is not true just for actuaries. This is true for all professions. It could be doctors, lawyers, anything. We're changing the nature and understanding of risk. Now, this is so. It's not just that the AI is coming into the world. It's also that the world itself is changing. And today, we see economies are more closely linked all around the world. You also have climate change, which is impacting everywhere, and it's not just the coastal cities. Was recently in mountains in South America, Andes Mountains, when it's the fact that all of this snow is melting from the mountains means that farmers on the other side have less water. So it's impacting everybody. But for us as professionals, this is creating an opportunity for us because these problems are so complex. Yes, we have the computers to help us, but it really takes a human being to devise a solution. So now what is data science? So we hear the term data science. I'm thinking that the term data science applies a little bit more broadly. So data science is sort of the collection of techniques. So the traditional statistics, the data analytics, predictive analytics that we hear about, and machine learning. All of this in terms of methods to analyze data. So if we put it all together, it's a multidisciplinary field. And I think this is really foundational for the skills that actuaries have. Okay, now what is so significant about AI? It's really AI, look, before even computers, there were actuaries, okay? And what were actuaries doing? They were making predictions. So actuaries were studying historical records, patterns. We were predicting mortality. We were predicting trends. And now this cost has been dropping. So this allows us to do things, think of self-driving cars. This is an example that I like to use. It sounds science fiction. It doesn't even sound possible. But what are the computers that are in those cars doing? They're making predictions. Okay, they're making a prediction. Is there a pothole in the road that I have to avoid? Is there another car? So they're able to take all of this data and make predictions in real time. That's the consequence of this prediction getting much, much cheaper. But the prediction getting cheaper doesn't itself change the fact that there's uncertainty and risk. We may be able to make a better prediction, but the risk is there. In fact, the risk in many parts of the economy is growing. I mean, we have things that we have to worry about today that we never had to worry about before. Cyber risk, for example, data breaches. So you can make better predictions because it's cheaper. You can make maybe a more precise prediction, but it doesn't change the fact that there's uncertainty in the prediction, and that uncertainty really creates the need for insurance, and it creates the need for actuaries to interpret that and help design the insurance. So what is machine learning? This is a term, I've seen the term, and I've personally reviewed and studied this for maybe the last 20 years. 20 years ago, there wasn't as much activity as there is today. This has really exploded today. But machine learning is basically training the computer, training the machine to take data, interpret it, and be able to reach the same conclusions that an expert would reach. And that, that's, it's not exactly obvious, but if you, for example, you want to teach the computer, now this is not just about numeric data, this could be around visual data, language data, anything. But if you want to teach the computer, say, to recognize a picture of a cat, and that's different than a dog, you're going to show the picture and tell the computer, hey, this is a picture of a cat. And when presented new information, can the computer actually understand that with the new information, it can make an accurate prediction? But you had to tell it what that information was to begin with. And then, so who is doing that? An expert in whatever that is. So the computer is not really understanding, but it's sort of repeating whatever the processes that a human was going through to understand. Okay? And these are the applications. This is not just, like I said, it's not just about numerical data. This is computer vision. This is what is like sort of in those self-driving cars. A natural language. Okay, this is also not. I don't think it's also typical for us to think of this way. But we have a lot of our data is, what is insurance? Well, basically the government or the company is making a promise, right? So that promise is made in language. And that's why we have contracts. Those contracts can be data too. So natural language and studying how the words in the contracts are put together. Cognitive agents, this is sort of designed in real time to interpret. We have some of these in MetLife data centers, and understanding the tone that people are speaking to us in. Is there some indication that they may be upset or that they're happy? That's now computers can do that too, because we've trained them to do that. Robotics, autonomous vehicles. I've talked about autonomous vehicles, but robotics. This is a lot of what our employees have been doing is performing the same tasks over and over again. So this is not the kind of robotics even in a factory, an assembly line. I mean, that's one type of robotics too. But robotics could be as simple as automating some steps in an Excel spreadsheet. Things that you have to repeat over and over and over again. You can put it into a script, and that script is more or less considered robotic. And so how will this change things? It's going to change things by automating functions, giving us better predictions, so we're going to be more efficient, we're going to be more accurate, but it's also going to begin to change what actuaries do, because actuaries, we're trained to do the math. Now, the computer is really going to be doing the math. We need to know what the computer is doing for sure. We can't just say, go do the math. We need to know what those algorithms are doing. But the work of the actuary is going to shift away from actually doing the math to devising solutions for customers of what the implications are. So it's really changing the role. And you can see, this is analysis. We've asked McKinsey consulting firm to help us, and this is some of their conclusions, looking at data, what professionals might do. Basic literacy, basically reading and writing. We're going to be doing less of that. This is across all professions. This isn't specific to actuaries. The basic math, we're going to be doing less of that. But what are we going to be doing more of? This IT, the programming, the advanced analytics, the application of these skills, engineering, okay, all of these things, there's going to be, it's just not that the computers are taking away work from us, is that they're enabling work to be done at a deeper level and give us a better outcome. So all of these high level, even the technical things that now set that aside, because even there's going to be a lot of extra work in the technical fields, but there's even going to be more work coming out of social, emotional skills that people have. Only people will be able to do this. People will be able to, you can see communication, negotiation skills, empathy, leadership, okay? There are serious problems in the world. Climate change is a serious problem in the world. An actuary or other professionals may understand these problems because the computers are running models, giving them data, but it's going to require a lot of skill to devise solutions. And those are, because they're not simple solutions for whatever these problems are. Okay, and I'll say at this point, this trip I took was just a few weeks ago, really, to South America and the Andes Mountains, and the water coming from the Andes Mountains. There were protests in Argentina, was the country I was in. Why? Because that water is needed both by farmers to grow crops and miners to operate their mining operations. So who wins? This is a very difficult situation because resources are finite. So this is, these problems are impacting everyone, and the solutions will require people like ourselves to be able to do this. And so you could think about it kind of categorizing it this way. The lowest level, the technical knowledge, this is really where we're teaching the computers how to help us do this technical work. And there is work involved in that, helping the computers, teaching them, programming them, training them, is definitely technical. But the rest of this, adaptability quotient and emotional intelligence, this is where I think more of the work of the profession is going. This is, look, I got my, I said I've been at MetLife 35 years. I got my designation, FSA, probably just about 30 years ago. Maybe a little bit less, 28, 29 years ago. For sure, the stuff I studied may not be relevant. The stuff I studied, even the techniques around actuarial mathematics have changed. When I started studying actuarial mathematics, we had things called commutation functions. I don't know if anybody in the room even knows what commutation functions are, but we had big binders and books of values that were pre-calculated. And if you wanted to understand, probability of somebody living a certain time, or we pre-calculated based on a mortality table every possible combination, and these were published. So that's a technology, how to look up in that table, that's obsolete. But that was a big part of the curriculum when I studied. And this doesn't apply anymore. So for sure, the pace of change in what we're learning, what we're studying, is happening very fast too. So this adaptability quotient, you can't assume that even what you're learning today in university is necessarily relevant 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out. By 20 years, I assure you, it's not going to be as relevant. So the key is having the mindset to keep developing yourself keep learning. And that's true, I think, for any professional. Okay, so it's why continuing education is so important to the profession. It may seem like a burden. You know, some of the SOA, I have to perform 30 hours of continuing education each year, but it's really vital to stay current with all of the topics that we're learning. And emotional intelligence, without these kinds of thinking skills, creativity, listening to our customers, we're not going to be able to devise solutions to these problems. We're just, we're not. And you don't want really somebody just taking the output directly from the computer. You want somebody that can understand and interpret that, and then work with somebody in a company or the government, politician, to understand what the implications of that are. So this is going to become critical. I think it's already critical in many ways. I think it's already what distinguishes our profession. When you think about the things that are studied in the syllabus, maybe the early exams are focused on mathematics, but later exams are focused on regulations and economics and things that enable actuary to create and put it all together. So, as I said, the risk environment is changing quickly. Let's see if I could. Well, property casualty. Now, property casualty is changing so quickly. When you think of property casualty, so I already skipped that slide, but let me cover it because I don't know how to go backwards here. Forgive me. Oh, there we go. Thank you. When you have things, you can imagine things. I referenced self-driving cars. Well, what's the implication of that for insurance? Once the cars can drive themselves, it will cut the risk of accidents way, way down. And that alone may change the need for insurance. Maybe there's not the same need for property casualty insurance. Maybe it's shifted, maybe now it's cyber risk. Somebody interferes with how the operation of the vehicle, or maybe it's product liability risk. So the risk is there, but it may not be the same risk that we're used to. And same in mortality, morbidity. The environment is changing. It's a very sad thing in the U.S. We've been used to having mortality improvement, steady, continuing. But this is beginning to level off or even decline in the U.S. The rate of improvement becoming less steady. And why is this? Because there's an increasing amount of, these are bad things, drug usage, opioid epidemic in the U.S., gun usage, and it's affecting mortality. So it's affecting the marketplace for insurance as well. So we need to study this, and a lot of this is driven by inequality in this society. So again, this is my feeling about what the new skills are, the new risk skills are. It's studying the big data, making predictions based on that data, and it's not the same as extrapolating from this little data, I call it. Building insurance into new kinds of products. So, as I said, I think it's the traditional kinds of insurance have to adapt to the way we live our lives today, which could be different. We have to build in high severity risks into our models. This is not, can't take it for granted that these things are not going to happen. You have, in some parts of the world, flooding that, could come up and be a very big problem. There are many things that could happen that could be very high severity, but very low frequency events. So creates the opportunity for innovation. And, this isn't just impacting the actuarial side of insurance, it's impacting all of the other sides too, marketing. So with the marketing data, can you understand somebody's social media profile to understand if this is the kind of product that would appeal to them in the first place? What about underwriting? So this kind of collecting data, I mentioned telemetrics, the kind of gathering information remotely, claims processing. In the U.S. now, you may have there are some of the companies may, instead of having a claims examiner, if you're getting in a car accident, they may send a drone to come and take pictures of the car accident. It's completely different. So all of this is changing. The way we're doing every bit of how we design and administer products. And what will insurance look like 50 years from now? I don't know, but it's not going to look like what it looks like now. But we can stay on top of that. So we need to continue to stay on top of these techniques. Like I said, it's more techniques than we knew before. We have to understand that predictive analytic techniques. We need to practice as actuaries these skills. This is actually quite a challenge because the aptitude that actuaries have to study and build models. A lot of us like to, just stay quiet and work in our offices. We don't like to get out and interact. But I think the most successful people will be the ones that can take those models but go out and interact with everyone. And so education, we're here in university, needs to adapt to this as well. Things is evident are becoming more connected globally. So, it used to be all about local rules, regulations, and so forth, but there's so much is changing that we need to understand the whole global context for all of this. We really do. SOA has a commitment to research. We sponsor a lot of research. We have, together with some of the other actuarial organizations in North America, we've created a climate index that we publish. Right now it's limited to North America because that's where we've been able to pull together the most robust data sources, but it's an example of something, it's a tool being created that could help us in the future. It's not immediately evident, but over a long period of time, it should become useful. And we want to broaden the kinds of offerings. This is something, not sure, maybe in the next presentations or later today we can talk about this as well, but our syllabus, SOA syllabus, is expanding. We've introduced predictive analytics into the syllabus. We've introduced, if you've already got your credential and already an FSA, we've introduced certificate programs. So if you didn't study something on the syllabus like predictive analytics, it's a chance to study it afterwards and retool and demonstrate your competence. So that's new for the SOA. The first one was predictive analytics. We're looking at potentially expanding that into other categories. And I'm going to skip these next two slides because they're not specific to the actuarial profession. But I think I'm going to, iterate this. The SOA's commitment to you. The SOA is exploring challenges and studying the environment to demonstrate its commitment to provide members and candidates with the most comprehensive and innovative education platform, forward-thinking research, and the latest techniques to keep you competitive and align with your needs and your career. So with that, and this is sort of our theme, evolve, empower, and elevate the profession. So thank you.